Hello, everybody. Welcome to Unity's Creator Spotlight. I am super excited for today's show. As some of you may have already seen in the past, we did a Let's Dev about netcode for game objects and building multiplayer games with netcode for game objects. But today we have something really special. We have a game that's actually used netcode for game objects to build their online multiplayer game. That game is Ship of Fools by Fika Productions. We have 4 people from the team here today. We're going to be looking at art and animations, the philosophy behind the art and design. We're going to be looking at their implementation of netcode for game objects, that and so much more. We're so happy to have everybody in chat with us. So please keep throwing your questions at us all day today. I'll be asking those questions to the team. And yeah, before we jump in and introduce the team, let's take a look at the trailer for the game.
Our tale begins with the heaviest storm. The fools beach on our shore. They wake beneath the great lighthouse of yore, built thousands of years before. I set them to see how they fare. Storms stride, lighting the way. With only each other to stand by their sides, they kept foes at bay, at least for today. With danger approaching, they try and they try. The aquapocalypse ever raging topside, while relics of sirens they pull from the depths, unaware that their quest might lead them to their death. Our tale began with the heaviest storm. Now I'm afraid how it ends. Believe me, I've seen it before. The darkness that lurks in the eye of the storm. The darkness that lurks in the darkness that lurks in the eye. I guess we'll find out who's the greatest of fools.
Hello, everyone. Hello, team. Welcome to the Creator Spotlight.
Hello.
It's a pleasure to have you. That was an incredible trailer. I have questions about the trailer, which I'm going to get to. But first, I'd like us to all introduce ourselves. So let's start to my right. Antoine, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Antoine. I'm a co-founder of Fika Production, but also on Ship of Fools, I was directly the producer and game designer for the game. So many hats that we are wearing for developing a game. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's a pleasure to have you. I'm so happy you were able to join us. And Daniel, please.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm Daniel, co-founder as well of Fika Productions. On Ship of Fools, I'm the lead gameplay developer, and I'm here to show you today some neat tricks of how we did the game, how we managed to become developers.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Excited to look at the behind the scenes of the game with you, Daniel. And Marc-Antoine.
Hey, hi guys. I'm Marc-Antoine. I'm the tech lead here at Fika Production and another co-founder as well. Today I'll be speaking of our implementation of netcode for game object and other cool stuff like build pipeline. I do DevOps and dev tool for the team in production. So that's all about me.
Amazing. Thanks for joining us. Our audience loves talking about multiplayer, so I'm very happy you're here to talk about that. And last but not least, we have Etienne.
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Etienne, and I am yet again one of the co-founders of the studio, and I handle the animation for the whole game, as well as the VFX. So I'll talk to you about pretty much how everything was a big learning journey from nothing to what you saw now. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and the game is visually striking, so I'm really excited to hear more about that process. And I know you have a lot of footage to show us. Before we dive into looking in editor and looking behind the scenes of the game, maybe we can get to know the studio a bit. So maybe you can give us a little history about the studio, how you came together, how did you all meet, where are you in the world?
Yeah.
Antoine,
Yeah, go ahead. So Fika Production had its heart. We are a studio of 11 people. We are based in Quebec City, Canada. This is why we have a strong French accent. So you will notice that during the stream for sure. And our team is mainly, we were like new in the industry like 4 years ago. We were studying together. We have our bachelor. For us, it was in software engineering. So we decided like we want to work together, and that was the main part of creating a studio. It was mostly driven by the fact that we are a team of friends. We know each other from our university, and we just wanted to find a way we can work together. And instead going in different companies, we just decided, yeah, we will found our own company.
Nice.
And we were driven by a same passion of playing video games. So the idea of creating games was like natural for us. But at first we were like 3 programmers, and it's not a good way to make good looking games.
Right.
So we reached out to other of our friends, and we start meeting together to have Etienne that is here with us for doing the animation. And quickly we ramp up to being this team that is like now composed of 11 people all working together and be able to make games like Ship of Fools. So,
Amazing. You have a lot of talented friends, basically. That's the secret to making good games. Have talented friends.
we try to.
Amazing.
And also something nice is fika is not a word in French, it's a Swedish word, and it means to have like a coffee break together. And it's something, it's a philosophy in Sweden. I've been to Sweden, and we find that it was great to represent what we want to do. It's to work together, bring people together, and make sure that we take care of people that are around us. So the Fika philosophy became like quite natural to became the name of our company, and we started making games, and mostly Ship of Fools was the first big project that we have created.
Oh, wonderful. So Fika really represents how you treat each other and how you work as a team. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. So you said Ship of Fools was your first big project, but were there smaller like warm-up projects you did? Did you do some game jams? What was that like?
Prototypes. We learned like how to use Unity on different ideas that were slowly transforming into Ship of Fools.
Okay.
There was also a part of the company that was doing workforce services, mostly in the web development, software development, and a bit of animation, just to be able to bring a bit of money on the table to make sure that we can have that team that is growing, and in the end having like the whole team ready to create a full game. Yeah.
I see. And where did the spark for the idea for the full game come from? How do you know like what full game? You know you want to make a full game, but how do you know which one to make?
We are quite big roguelike fans.
Okay.
A lot of people in the team were playing roguelikes, and we found that we wanted to play those games together, and often it was clear that those games have been designed to be played solo, and the multiplayer was maybe an afterthought, or maybe something that became like a feature a bit further in the production. And it feels like sometimes it's hard to achieve what you can achieve in solo in those kind of games. So initially we brainstorm about what kind of projects we want to do. So roguelike was big up there, but it feels also like scary to create a roguelike, because those games, they can creep up quite quickly in the amount of things that you want to put.
Scope creep.
Yeah.
But
But in the end, we decided that there was a place in the market for creating that kind of game, because one that is doing like co-op, local co-op with the roguelike genre, not a lot were doing it right. And even if some of them were quite cool, we feel like there's a place to have Ship of Fools. And and we were driven by that passion of creating that game. So we started doing some concept art, prototyping some things that we will show to you quite soon, and it became slowly Ship of Fools.
okay, great. So multiplayer from the ground up was one of the pillars maybe one of the design pillars of the game, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
what is
okay.
better than having like everybody sharing like their life bar? So having everybody in
yeah.
a boat in one vehicle,
Yes.
it made a lot of sense for that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't turn from a multiplayer into a solo mode like many of the. I mean, I've played many multiplayer roguelikes where you can die and your other partner can keep going and you have to just sit
Yeah.
and watch them. But I guess this is.
Yeah, that was a no go for us.
Yes,
Like,
okay.
we need to stay in the same boat, and if we sink, everybody sinks, so
Right.
we lose everybody at the same time.
We're all in this boat together. Okay,
Exactly.
good. Very nice. So you said you teased that you're going to show us some old concept art, some old prototypes, maybe.
Yeah.
We can look at
So
that.
you have seen the trailer. I think you can we can show you like what was the vision at first. It was in one of the first key art that we have done. So
wow.
a lot more cartoony. There was also that idea of a captain was running the ship, and it wasn't us, the captain. So we need to follow its orders. So, for example, wiping wiping the boat of dust. So that, like, your life bar was the satisfaction of that captain. So that was the early concept, but we felt that creating a roguelike, you need to have a more. It's hard to be like a casual roguelike, and the art style was mostly driven toward that casual audience. So we are still cartoony, but a bit darker with the new style of Ship of Foes.
Okay. Okay. I'm
but
curious
what-
to see how that cartoony transformed into dark. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and that was the first key art that we have done that was pitched to publishers, and the first time we tried to sign a deal for creating that game, we didn't have any prototype at all. We had a preview animation video that was showing like the feel of what could be Ship of Foes, but it was no gameplay at all. So I think we can show that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Over here. Okay, nice.
So that has been done by Etienne, and it was only animation, but we get a kind of the vibe of what Ship of Foes would have been. It was also in the isometric style, but we find it easier to create the game in a more classical orthographic view for the animation and everything. So those are the kind of decisions that we have made during the production. It was our first big project, so we needed to decide what our team is able to do, and we feel like this is like the spark, like one of the first idea.
Also,
This
a
is
fun fact.
incredible to see.
Fun fact about these characters: those were the earliest version of Ink and Todd,
Yeah.
who are actually the two main characters in the game. And as you can see, Todd had a little cap on his head. And here I have the hoodie. I have the official Fika hoodie, and the logo that we have is Todd with a little cap on
Oh,
his head.
nice.
So it's
Maybe we can full screen Daniel so we can see that properly.
it can show
There
my
we go.
hoodie.
There we go.
There's the old Todd right there with the cap. So we
Very
kept
nice.
we kept his design, his holders design for our merch. So yeah.
Amazing. So let's get back
That's
to the
a
art.
real fun fact.
I have a question about the. This was Etienne. Did you just do this in Photoshop? How did you develop this animation?
I was about to talk about this
Yeah.
this clip later, but I can say that right now it's all hand-drawn animation, frame by frame.
Yeah.
So it took an incredible, like, the clip is so
It's quite a long.
really smart. No, not smart, small. But then I just think about the amount of time it took me to do all of this, and I'm like, yeah, you're gonna see later on when I talk about animation why it wasn't the right decision to go hand drawn.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I did it in the background are in Photoshop, and then the animation is done in a software called Toon Boom Harmony.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but it looks like it was totally worth it for the team. I'm sure the team
Yeah.
kept looking to this, and I'm sure it was very motivational as well.
It was a great tool to
Yeah.
convince people, and we
Right.
took example from. I remember me and Ariane, which is the art director for the game. We saw the XCOM. They did the same thing for their first game, XCOM 1, I guess, and it's called a previs. So previsualization of what would look like the gameplay, but it's not gameplay. It's fake. It's all fake. And then we were like, what if we do the same thing? And I think it worked.
Yeah, it worked because in the end we signed with a publisher, which is Team 17, to help us ship that game and releasing it to the market. But yeah, it was really practical because at that point in time we were October 2018, I think, yeah, and no gameplay at all. And now what we are seeing on the screen is like the first really early prototype of the game. So that's our boat.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's great. It's a raft, but it's great.
Yeah, it's a raft. We have like a texture for the water, and we see one of the
Nice.
first
The baby
things of the
crabs.
game. Mini crabs, and they were just like moving toward that ship, and it feels like really a tower defense game, and we are not really exploring. Enemies are coming at you in waves, and those were like the first thing that we have developed, the different systems. We see also other type of trajectory that we try to use for. We have seen the lobbing trajectory of projectile.
Yeah.
It's something that we had removed from the game because even if it's look cool when we see the prototype, it was something a bit it didn't feel that great to control that kind of trajectory with the controller in your hands. Yeah.
I see.
And so we see a bigger enemies, upgrade that we put directly on our cannon that we have to loot in the ocean. And another thing that we just saw a few moments ago, and I think we will see it again, was to wipe off some dirt that is on the ship.
Yeah.
So it was the captain's command, and on the left side of the screen we see the health bar, but it's not really. When you take damage, it affects that health bar, but the satisfaction of your captains was mainly the representation of that bar. So yeah, here,
I see. Okay.
current order, clean the dirty
In the
tiles.
dirt. Nice.
But it
Also,
was
fantastic.
another fun fact: the green crabs were called booger crabs, and
Nice.
they dealt damage in form of dirty tiles. So,
Oh, I see. Okay, so
This-
that dirt actually damages the ball.
This-
Disappoints the
yeah.
captain. Yeah.
it disappoints the captain. Yeah.
Okay. And this was
here
all
we are-
local at the time?
Yeah, it was only
Yeah.
local. We
Yeah.
started developing the game only local multiplayer, and we added the online afterward. I think Marc-Antoine will comment on that a bit later on in the presentation.
Yes.
Yeah, with the COVID and all, it was a natural move to go online because local multiplayer was not happening anymore.
Yeah, something that we are seeing here also is it's quite cool. It was a mechanic that you can ignite a patch of oil in fire, and it will spread the fire, so
Oh,
do damage
wow.
over time to the enemies.
Very cool.
It was mostly practical with that lob shot, and another part that was a bit weird is you are moving on the ship, and if the patch are not moving, it's quite strange to see that look. So
That's true.
So when we started adding the water movement to those patch of oils, we found that it was not fun to play like that. So
Oh, okay, gotcha.
yeah.
That makes sense.
So I think we can move on to show gameplay a bit more advanced of Ship of Fools. Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually, I do have a question. When I look at that, I can't help. You talk about roguelike inspirations, but I can't help but feel a little bit of Overcooked in there as well. I don't know
Yeah.
if you looked at that, because one person goes and cleans while the other person is shooting and all of that. Did that have any?
Yeah, I think the initial hook of Ship of Fools was Overcooked mixed with roguelike
Nice.
elements, but
Okay.
instead of cooking dishes, you are shooting with cannons, so it became something quite different in the end.
Yes.
So this is not the final look of the ship. It was a prototype with the really more advanced. It was close to our I would say first vertical slice. A couple of things had changed, like the look of the boat, but we see other things in the gameplay. We see the reflect mechanic, things that have been created along the way. Something that is quite interesting here is the look of the map that is really different of what it is right now. And this was more a traditional map that we see in a lot of roguelikes. I think the main one I have in my head right now is Slay the Spire, where you have those choices to do to progress towards a final goal. And something that we felt was missing from that map design is mostly that that you feel like you are on a rail, and you technically in the game you are sailing your ship, and you're not sailing at all. So we felt it was a bit odd to have that kind of map for Ship of Foes, and that led to something else that I think we can show right now.
Yeah. Let's get to that.
Yeah, so this was the previous map, so we see really clearly the influence of Slay the Spire with the different encounters and islands to visit, and at the end you have to reach the final boss, destroy it to go to the other sector of the game. We can also see that there was a day countdown, so you had like 3 days to save the archipelago from the aquapocalypse. So that was one of the ideas. So it was like a 3-run process to complete, and it became only 1 run because we felt it was a bit repetitive to start again with your same equipment but go further. So we decided like having the classic formula of only one run to try to save the archipelago was a bit fit for the game.
Okay.
So this was the old map, but the new map that we want to talk about is
Switch to that now.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh,
There
it is. Yeah.
So we decided to change to X's for that map, because it's like the same kind of principle as the older map, but this one gives you a much bigger feeling of exploration, because from any point on the map, if you can go forward, you see something forward, normally you can reach that point. So you have a completely free decision on where you want to go next to try to reach the end of the sector.
Okay.
But the problem that this caused was mostly related to the path that player can take, because it can be really longer. You can do a lot of encounters.
Keep going up and down, right? Yeah.
Instead of going straight forward. So this is where we added the fact that the storm is also moving in the other direction than you. So you will meet somewhere, and the pattern of the map will block some location. So if you want to go somewhere, you need to be fast to reach that one if it's close to the storm. So
That's really cool.
by changing that, it changed the whole vibe and feeling of exploration in the game, even if the gameplay on the ship is mostly like defending it against the different wave of enemies. So
Yeah, you really turn the 3 pathways into what it feels like to explore on a ship, right?
Yeah.
You're just steering the ship in whichever direction you want, and I think I love this representation. To be honest, I think this is a great progression.
yeah, I think it's pretty much it about the map
Nice.
art style. We said that we have moved to something a bit more darker, and I think Etienne will be able to pick up from there and talk a bit more about that art style, the animation, and what we have in the game.
Perfect. So let's jump right into the animations, how animations were made in the game. So Etienne, go ahead.
Yes. Well, my part is a bit about it's connected to the story of myself and how I learned everything I had to learn heading out of school, because like Antoine said in the beginning, we were only just finishing university when we founded the studio, and then I realized that I had to learn everything because background story about me. I did university degree, bachelor's degree in animation, but then my the animation we learned at school was mostly focused on TV shows and movies, so the rules are different, and everything is different when you start animating for games, and that's why you can see that the pipeline of animation in Ship of Fools grew a lot. At the start, like we talked about earlier, was the previs, and maybe I can show it on my screen if you want. Or I can just show you. The old Tods, the old Fools, that were animated in this software I talked about called Toon Boom Harmony. It's different. It was different. Yeah. So like you saw earlier was the previs, and now this one is as a puppet in Toon Boom Harmony, which is the software I learned in university. But then frame by frame was long and cost a lot of money to make. Then we tried to use Harmony for rigs and puppets, but then again Toon Boom is a lot still made for TV shows and movies, so we tried to go from Harmony to Spine, and then that's when these little Tods happened. This is Todd with the repair mechanic. I think you're gonna see. Yeah, there you go. And then that's still a puppet in a new software called Spine. Yeah. And Spine was the one that we thought was gonna happen, but then again we had troubles in the exportation importation of the frames, and we wanted to have the best information usable in Unity, so it came good that at some point a new member of our team came in, which is Marc-André, who has he is our technical animator, technical artist, and he has a very deep knowledge about Autodesk Maya. Okay. So then I can show you the animation we have now in the game, and then wait for it to pop up. It's the new rigs that we use for all the game. So it's this one is Gil, and this is simply an idle, and then you can see the controllers that we use. It's all made in Maya, and Maya is a 3D environment, so that's why you can see that we have kind of this trick where I can use the Z axis to put stuff behind and in front of it. So that's the main perk of having Maya is, you can see that the arm goes in front a bit and stuff like that, and then we were able to implement this very well in Unity to have access to the bones information, so where this one is, and we can attach stuff to it. So I can show you in Unity that this same little character has been imported, and we have access. We can import the rig and the animation file. So I guess at some point we never made a game in full 3D with 3D rigs and 3D characters, but I'm pretty sure it's the same pipeline, which is you have the rig and you have all the bones, and you have access to all the information about it inside Unity.
So are you drawing the character in, let's say, Photoshop, and you have the 2D sprite, and then you bring that into Maya, and then you're with the Maya bones, you're kind of just like bending the art itself, basically. Okay, great.
So our concept artists, they were the ones that drew all the stuff in Photoshop, and then Marc-André is the one that rigged everything. I animated all of it in Maya, and then importation in Unity. That was the final pipeline.
Great.
Yeah. I can show you some enemies that showcase a bit more of the 3D aspect of it. I'll go back. Yeah.
And what I like, I just want to focus on this for the audience, is that you didn't have the answer right away. No. You experimented, you explored different tools, and then you landed on the thing that worked for you, and that's fine, right? I think a lot of people are like, I don't want to start until I know exactly how I'm going to do it, but you didn't. You started right away, and you found it,
We had the big desire to do something that was aesthetically pleasing. even for the concept arts and for the movement, and that's why leaving hand-drawn animation behind was hard. But we tried all the way to find ways to implement. Give me a second.
Yeah.
To find ways to implement hand-drawn style or cartoony animation style. Get that I was more used to do inside of my university. So yeah, here you go. Here's the owl. I can show you an animation that showcases very well.
So cool.
So at some point the owl lays small owlets, and you can see that the wings are kind of flipped. I use the 3D space to enhance my motion. That's basically the way I work.
I see.
So that gave me the freedom to create motions that were a bit harder to create in full 2D. So it was very fun to experiment with the depthness of a 3D environment with 2D characters.
And the camera never moved, so you were guaranteed to achieve the same effect, right?
Yeah.
Or never turned, rather. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of it, it's all flattened, and then we don't see the 3D depthness, but I use it to create better animation. So
yeah.
And then another thing I can talk about.
Yeah.
Thank you. The fact that we had the rigs all set up inside of Unity made us. It was able for us to have access to the bones information, so we could slap on some VFX to some bones.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So let's talk about the VFX now.
Yeah, I can use it to. I don't know which one is it, but I can. Oh yeah, there you go. This one. This one is it's like when the crab is on fire. You can see it's like right under the left arm bone, and I can just press play. You can see that it follows the
right. It sticks to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a lot of easy info we could use to make sure that I didn't have from the start of it when we were in frame by frame animation. It was really every time we wanted to attach something to a bone, we were like, oh, we're gonna have to go in the animation software again, reanimate everything, export a new patch. It wasn't that we had to learn a lot. We had to find the right way and the best way, and I think we still have a lot to learn, but I think we find something that works pretty well. We redid the stuff. I mean, I animated the main characters so many times in different softwares, and then again with all the enemies from the early sectors, they were done like twice or thrice. I don't remember.
Right.
And so yeah, but I can
like even tracking the fire onto if it was a hand-drawn animation, like tracking a fire onto the arm of the crab would just, I'd imagine, be a lot harder than just sticking it to that bone, basically.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
So I can. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you were going to that, but something that I really like about the Crabsters are the legs, because we are in a 3D. It's a 3D game with 2D sprite, 2D animation, so we can use some techniques to create also deepness. And one of the examples of that is the legs of the crab that are not in the same position exactly.
Yeah. I think it's more. I can showcase this more with if I show the boss.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Give me a second.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. True. But then again, after that, I'm gonna talk about VFX, because this was another part of my job that I had to learn 90% of it during the production, which is quite something.
Yeah. We have someone in the chat. When Men, who's comes to a lot of our live streams, asks, do you have scale on your bones?
Scale.
So maybe maybe the question is, are you like, do you ever increase the scale and decrease the scale of the bones?
Yeah.
Maybe
inside of Maya, I use it a lot to create
Maya,
stretch and squash, but I'm not sure if that's the right answer. But
they'll let us know. But I'm pretty sure that was the question. Yeah.
Okay. So here's the boss. Give it a second. It's pretty heavy. Wait. Okay. So here is the second boss of the game, which is called Claws. And you can see that we use. Oh, I don't. Okay, there you go. You see it now.
Amazing.
So here it is.
Oof.
And here's what Antoine talked about. We put the like behind legs.
Oh yeah.
Whatever is it, and they're like very far behind to create the sense of depthness. And then we, yet again, stick some ripple casters to the legs, so that everything was following. So these are not yet plugged at the right place, but when you press play, they stick to the bone, and then they follow the animation, which is cued by then the bones, and then
Yeah.
it follows everything.
Fantastic. And those back legs did you were they painted in a way to seem like they're further in the background, or
No,
was
it's
there an effect added to make them appear?
the darker shade, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like the way we exported them. So
Nice.
at some point they were only copies, but then they were oh no, I think it's all hand drawn.
Nice.
Yeah, by Vincent and Ariane, which are amazing concept artists.
Beautiful.
But yeah, okay, I can speak about VFX
Yes.
and how I still came from the background of learning animation in school for movies, and my personal choice during my bachelor's degree was hand drawn animation. So the whole using 3D was new for me, and using a particle system was new for me too. So I tried to combine the stuff I liked to the stuff I had to learn, and this is what happened. So this is a 10-frame hand-drawn animation of a flame that I did, which showcased a lot of my love for hand-drawn animation and my undying desire to still have it in the game.
Yeah.
So I created this flip book with it, and then
Beautiful.
in the game, I'll go back inside Unity, close this, and open, like, say this one. Okay, there you go. So this is a particle system that I created. You're gonna see it. There you go. So this is the corruption fire that we use in the third sector of the game, and you can see that at the center of it is the flame that you saw in Photoshop, which is a flip book with a texture that you can see over here. This one.
Shuriken, yeah.
Yeah, shuriken. So this is the particle that I created. I know, like, I didn't reinvent the wheel and anything, but for me was a big success to find a way to integrate my love for stuff that looks hand drawn or is hand drawn, and create some variation of color and scale. Even these ones are hand drawn also, but there are like many small particles that are different in shape and scale and all in color. And when you combine everything, it looks like this.
Yeah. And did you find it was easy to like import your flip books and have the get the animations running in Unity?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to find the right way to create the optimized flip books, but then again, we find a way. It looks great. I think I'm proud of it.
Perfect.
We use this flame particle like everywhere in the game because it looks good, and then we can just you put it in orange and it's fire. You put it in blue and it's ghost fire or whatever.
Right, it becomes a whole new thing.
Yeah.
That you combine it. So when you say optimized flipbook, can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, at the start, I think it was only like us being young and innocent, but because we exported everything in very, very high resolution. Then we learned that at the end of it, the game was kind of heavy, and we had to find a way to make sure that the game still looks good, but not too heavy. So I just think it's the learning curve that we had to take.
Yeah.
Speaking of optimization, I didn't use. Do I still have time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. I wanted to showcase the other technique that I found that
Please
I learned.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's called dissolve shader. It's a dissolve shader anyway. So it's a dissolve shader that I created with many YouTube tutorials that showcase me that I can achieve a 2D hand drawn style, but with one texture that I could paint. So this is what I painted in Photoshop, and I when I speak about this, I say it's like painting movement, because you kind of paint the gray gradient, and then you use a threshold filter in Photoshop, and you like slide it down, and then you create like an animation that I would have been able to draw in Photoshop or any animated software, but then again, it would have taken so much time. This is only one thing that I paint, and then inside Photoshop, I recreate a shader that kind of does the same thing as this threshold filter,
Right.
which is like eating away all the darker stuff, and then at the end, you're left with the white spots, and then nothing. So I can use this, mix it up in particle system with colors, shapes, speed, and all the systems that are in there to create variety. But then again, at some point, I still have the control over the look of the dissolve because I painted it. So
Right. And how does that look in the editor? Like when you
yeah, I can
put
show
in?
you that. Yeah. Give me a second.
It's a nice, efficient way to work. I like it.
Thank you. I was very happy when I found out that
Yeah.
it works and it looks good. This is not the right one. This is the one. Okay. So this is the oil explosion that you
Wow.
can get inside Unity, inside the game, and you can see at the center of it, which is like Unity is particle system is like mixing everything. It's like recipes that you try different ingredients every time you create one.
Yeah.
And this is like the whole meal, but then you can go inside of it and you can see that it's full of small things like this. And this is the one that I just saw.
Oh,
So
there we go.
I use scale. I can show you the wired. I use it like a custom mesh that I created.
I see, and you're scaling
And
it. Yeah.
I scale it, and it looks like this.
This is beautiful. This is
Thank you.
fantastic. That whole animation was stunning. It's like so
And
epic.
Yeah, I think I don't know if anybody needs any tips, but mine would be when you start creating something just like an animation or just a VFX like this, you see that at the end with everything mixed together, it looks good, but when you start, sometimes it looks like crap, and then you're like, what am I doing? How can I be doing art? but just keep working on the thing you started, and that at the end of it looks like this. But I can assure you, you say it looks good, but I still remember starting this one and thinking it's not gonna work.
Hating
then
it at
again,
first. Okay.
Yeah. So it
So
works
the
at
process isn't always beautiful, but if you stick
No.
through to the end,
Yeah,
you'll
there
get
you go.
something. You know.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Okay. Nice.
There you go.
I saw this undulating form, this sphere that you
Oh,
had.
yeah.
Is that another mesh that you were playing with?
There you go. Yeah,
okay.
this one. Yeah. It's a corruption explosion.
Very cool.
Still with I can try and find the texture that creates this big sphere. I think it's the smoke ball, yeah,
Oh, amazing.
which is it uses a corrupted smoke ball dissolve, and it's this texture that I created, which is like the same thing. Still uses gradients of black and whites, and then you use the same shader to eat at the dark pixels.
The darker part, darker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you
moving
go.
towards the light. And
Yeah, moving towards the light, yeah.
yeah, and where did you? How did you generate those textures? Or did you
I
paint
painted
those? You
them.
painted those ones. You painted yourself, even
Yeah, yeah.
the gradients. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice. Okay.
yeah.
Very nice.
It was it's a long work, but then I can show you like one of the effects that we see a lot inside the game is the melee attacks. This thing that spawns at the end of your paddle when you hit stuff.
Yeah.
And this
yeah.
was another hand painted texture that I created, and then you eat away at it, and it just creates a nice movement when it dissolves. And yeah, I'm repeating myself, but I think I think when I found it,
I love that. Yes.
it
That's a
was the
great
right
tip.
thing. Yeah, it was.
Yes.
At some point it clicks, and you're like, okay, I found the visual signature of it, and that's when it happened.
Yeah, and when you have a lot of animations to make, you need techniques like this, right?
Yeah.
It's a full game. It's huge.
Yeah.
We have a question. I
Yeah.
think this is pertaining to the big purple explosion.
Okay.
How long did it take to create this one? Yeah. So how long does it take to make an animation like that? Do you just disappear for like a week or a month and then come back with this animation with the team? How does that?
Maybe the others can talk about this, but I know that the further in production we were, the faster I could work.
Yes.
But I think now it would take me like a day or two, because I have the recipe in my head.
Mhm.
But it could take like weeks of, no, not weeks, just a week maybe, for one big explosion to to create if I didn't know where I was heading from the
Right.
start.
Especially if you're creating all the elements from scratch,
Yeah,
because
there you go.
I can see there's repeating elements. And,
Yeah, you see now it's
yeah.
it's ice explosion with still using the same kind of ball that yet again uses the same shader, and the snowflakes uses them also. It's
Oh, nice. Yeah.
it's I call it flocon dissolve. It's a snowflake dissolve. And yeah, it's painted like this so that when I use the dissolve shader, it eats the way. It's the same thing. We use it everywhere in the game, and I think it works.
That's perfect. I love that.
And yeah, sometimes when I'm like I want to have the centerpiece of my VFX is like you saw earlier the flame. I'm gonna end draw the animation because it's like I can put more love into it. But when it's like many small particles, I can just create one texture that is gonna be used with the dissolve shader, and then there you
and
go.
flip it around. But when there's a centerpiece like the corruption or the ghost flame, you really
Yeah.
wanna,
Yeah,
super noticeable.
need some
Great.
love. Yep.
Yes, people notice it. I think people like the audience notice it, and they appreciate it. Okay, yeah, Etienne, thank you so much for giving us
Been a pleasure.
this run through of the animation VFX. Really nice. The chat is loving it. They kept thanking you for your workflow tips and all the tips you were giving them. So this is
That's
amazing. Yeah, I think we're all learning. From
Yeah,
this.
that's my main lesson from all of this. I didn't know anything, and I still don't know a lot of things, so I'm gonna keep learning.
But
and
you know more than you did before.
I know more. I know more.
Yes,
Yeah, I know more.
exactly.
Gonna keep
Okay.
learning.
Great. So I think we'll go to the to Daniel, who's going to show us behind the scenes of the game. We'll look at some of that, and then after that section, we'll go on a break. But I think let's jump right into it. We have some time. So yeah, Daniel.
Yes,
think
hi
you're gonna-
everyone.
yeah, Daniel. Yeah, I think
I'm Daniel. I'm the lead gameplay developer on Ship of Fools, and I'm gonna show you the behind the scenes of the game, how it's made, and how it looks in the scene view. So, as was previously said, Ship of Fools is a 3D game, but we really considered for a long time making a 2D game. Because as Antoine said in the beginning, our team is composed of mainly 2D artists.
Mhm.
And so we considered for a long time that we should use this trend that we have in the team. So we considered for a long time making it a 2D game, and it brought quite a lot of challenges to make a 2D game with Ship of Fools. Because we realize in the mechanics that we have a lot of things that require depth and height. So one of the first mechanic we've implemented was the projectile that comes in a lobbing pattern. So we wanted to implement this, and it's quite hard to make this kind of stuff in 2D. Some people would say that it's possible to fake some height in 2D, but we found it was more appropriate to make it in 3D. Also, one of the things, it's quite stupid, but one of the things we realized early on, it was that the cannons, it's really hard to make it straight up 2D. Because as you can see, if I move my character here, I can shoot in like 180 degrees with the cannon.
Right.
So
Right.
at some point we asked the question, how is this gonna work in 2D? Do we have to draw the cannon
In every
in every angle?
frame,
you know?
yeah.
So
frame, yeah.
in the early prototypes, the cannons were for a long time they were just a big tube. So when there was no visual, because we still didn't know how to do that, and my job on Ship of Fools from the start was to make sure the game is playable and fun, even without any visuals. So me and Etienne were the two guys who started the game from the ground up, and at this point we didn't have any visuals. So we started in 3D with boxes and cubes, and the cannons were cubes and the fools were boxes. And as every game dev will learn in their journey, every game is the same game in its first week of development. And let me tell you this, it's really important. Every game, it's the same. It's cubes shooting cubes onto other cubes. Okay, so that's my job. I make sure that the cubes are fun to play with. And I just want to showcase a quick thing. Here's what the fools look like in their earliest form.
Fantastic.
When it was only cubes, the fools looked like this. And as we can see, there were these cannons, and there were these mag generators. So yeah, that's my art style. I'm quite an artist, as you can see. So I made this myself.
Yeah,
I'm pretty proud of it.
it looks great.
Great hat.
I love it.
Put
Great.
hat, on those.
I love it.
Put hat, on those.
I'm a hat guy. Okay.
He's a hat
I'm a hat guy, and I'm also a nose guy. And some people would say that this doesn't look like a nose, but let's just close this.
Those people are wrong. Those people
Those
are wrong.
people are wrong.
Oh, yeah.
So these
yeah.
were the earliest prototypes of Ship of Fools, and now it looks like this. And so that's why we've came up with a 3D style, but we've kept an orthographic camera to make sure that the game looks 2D in a 3D environment. So we had to use a lot of tricks to make sure that works. So as you can see here in my scene view, the camera is looking down at the ship in a 45 degrees angle, and it's for the whole game the camera angle doesn't change. And we use an orthographic camera to make sure that the tricks we use are unseen. For example, let me show you one of the tricks we use to make sure it looks 2D. The ship is actually quite twisted when we look at in some angle. So as you can see here, if I look at this ship from a straight angle,
Okay.
we see that it's quite messed up.
Yeah, I see.
But when we look at the ship in a 45 degrees angle, everything comes into place and it looks straight as an arrow. But
This is quite the optical illusion, I have to say.
Yeah,
Quite the
it's
I'm trying to
an
understand
optical
what's
illusion.
going on. Yeah, I'm trying to understand what's going on. Yeah,
yeah, it's quite an optical illusion because as you can see
Yeah.
here, the barnacles are quite stretched up, and the thing here is quite messed up. So when you look at it in this angle, it becomes really straight and beautiful. So
So how do you do that? So do you start from the stretched and you must start obviously from the 45 and the rest becomes stretched, and so can you explain that a bit more and why this was needed?
To be honest, I'm not the guy who did this. I'm just a guy who placed the visuals at the right
Nice.
place.
Nice.
But it was one of our tech artist jobs to make sure that the boat looks great in this angle. So he had to deform it manually in his 3D engine.
I see.
I think I can jump in a bit on that
Please do.
subject.
Yeah.
I'm not the technical artist who has done that, but the main goal, because we could have create like a whole 3D model with the ship, but it started from a concept art, and Ship of Fools, a lot of the concept are drawn in the same style as we want them to
Be in the
become in the engine. So
Yeah.
it started with that shape of a ship, and we wanted to keep the same line size, and we wanted to look as much as possible as the 2D art. So we started from that, and our tech artists has twisted the texture, everything, to make sure that it gives as close as possible the looks of what was drawn at first, instead of just creating a whole 3D model for the ship and creating texture for different part of the ship. It would have looked a lot more 3D than 2D if we have done that, even if we can still have some tricks with the shader, things like that. This was the best way to make sure we achieve that look.
I see. Got it.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
Thanks, Antoine. So yeah, as you can see, the game is really a mix between 2D elements and 3D elements. So as you can see here in my scene view, the cannons are in 3D, the boat is in 3D, but the character is in 2D, as it's in the showcase. Also the items are in 2D, as you can see this mag generator here. So this mix of these two realms create quite some challenges. One of the first we encountered was the fact that when you look at a 2D asset from a 45 degrees angle, the thing you will notice that it's the 2D asset will look squished. It will look like a bit squint down because you look at it with an angle. It's like if you look at a sheet of paper who's straight on your desk, and you look at it from the top, you can't see the whole sheet. I don't know if it makes sense.
No,
So
it does.
we had to implement a neat trick to make sure that the elements we're looking at are always in the shape that they were drawn, and also they are straight, pointing right up. They're not facing the camera. They're pointing in the y axis.
Yeah.
So we had to the trick we did. We stretched up. We scale up every of our 2D assets from the perfect amount to fit the angle of the camera. So as you can see here, our character Todd, it does not look that bad, but he's a bit scaled up when we look at him this angle compare of how he looks here.
I see.
I don't know if you can see the difference.
Oh, that's perfect. Yes, I can. Yeah, you can see stretched vertically.
Yeah. So if we look at Todd right here in a 2D view, he looks quite higher than in the game. It's because
it's been a few years.
Every of our asset. Oh, here's a seagull.
Seagull just wanted to be on stream,
Yeah. So every of our 2D assets in the scenery and in the game uses this technique.
Yeah.
So you can see it in this angle. So I want to... Yes.
If I may, Daniel, just wanted to add with the view you have in your scene view. You said that the 2D assets are oriented vertically on the y-axis, and they're not at a 45 angle degree like the camera. If we would have done assets facing in the same angle as the camera, there would have been clipping like you can see in the scene view with the action buttons that are clipping through the asset that is a little bit behind. And the UI that you're seeing here, the world UI in the game screen, you won't see any clipping because it's filmed from a different camera that will render everything on top of what the world camera is filming. So there's no occlusion happening with the world UI. But if we would have done this with the world 2D asset, every time you would be going near a wall on an island or something, every 2D asset will have clipped with what speed. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So yeah, thanks Mark for this one. As you can see here, our camera is consisting of many other cameras stacked one on top of each other, and the UI camera can film things that are pointing to the camera because it won't clip with anything, since this UI camera only is looking at UI elements.
Yeah.
But it does not work this way with characters, since it's blended with the world.
Right.
So I can show you how the game is made. So actually, Ship of Fools, it's working on kind of a treadmill system.
Okay.
If I can say. So that means that the boat is always at the same place in the world, but everything else is moving around the boat.
I see.
So here we see that I have my boat here alone in the ocean, and I can spawn myself some an island. So you can see here I am in the test scene. It's not something that is currently in the game. We've made a system to select any node, any type of island or encounter we want. Here
Alright.
it's kind of a secret dev mode.
Love
Um,
seeing some dev modes.
Yeah, so here I can select like the shop island, and you will see that when I do this, the shop island is spawned and created, and it comes into our water engine that we call.
Right.
And the water engine will bring everything towards the boat and make sure it stops at the right place.
Right place. Okay, that's so great. That's great to see the way you just visualized it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, so here we see that we have this island that spawned, and as you can see in this island, there's 3D elements. So like the walls and the whole pillars and the ground, these are all 3D elements, but every asset is 2D elements that have been scaled up and pointing in the y-axis. So yeah, now our character can move inside it, and as you can see, there's another cool system that we've made. We've made some. We use the Cine Machine as our engine for the cameras, and we've made a system so that the camera will switch place according to the player's position.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of camera zones that are placed in many different places. So there's one camera zone on the boat. So as you can see in the scene view, when my character goes on the boat, the camera switch to the camera of the boat.
Oh, nice.
And then when I go on the island, the camera switches to these camera zones that are configured in each and every island.
And these are all different virtual cameras.
Yes.
If you look at for everyone watching in the Cine Machine brain, you can see the actual live camera, and you can see it changing as Daniel walks from the boat to the island.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So when I spawn an island, the island comes with its own virtual cameras and its camera zones. And when you enter these, it will automatically switch. So Cine Machine works in a way where you only have one camera in your scene. That's your main camera, but it will take properties of other virtual camera, and that could be triggered by code or systems that you can implement to switch between everything. So as you can see, also another cool thing that I can show is that even though we're in a 3D environment, the water is actually 2D. So the water is actually a big plane, a big flat plane, and there's no way. We had a lot of shader work to make it look good and nice.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's just a big flat plane, and one of the challenges we faced is that how can we make it look good when we throw some 2D thing inside
Into the water.
a flat plane,
Right.
because we don't want to see the clipping between an horizontal image
Mhm.
and a vertical image. So if you throw some vertical sprite on a horizontal plane, it will cut in the middle, and
Yeah.
it will look ugly. So a neat trick that we've invented, me and Etienne, was this cool water ripple effect.
Nice.
This water ripple effect is in fact it's an horizontal animation and also a vertical animation, and we spawn
Oh, great.
we
two.
spawn this when something touches the water. So as you can see, there is a, I don't know if you can see it. No, we can't for the moment, but there is a collider right under the water plane. So the like the seashell right here will collide with the collider, with the ground collider, and the top of it will protrude on top of the water collider. So
Yeah.
we need to hide the clipping line with this neat water ripple effect.
Right.
So the vertical part will hide the clipping line, as we
And
can
it all
see.
blends perfectly. And
Yeah.
looks flat. Yeah.
So as we
Uh,
can see here, we can see the clipping line, but if I move the camera this way, the clipping line is hidden by the vertical part
Magic.
Okay.
of the wave.
And everything that's under is that you're using a water shader so that everything behind
Yeah.
the water looks like
Yeah, so the shader that is placed on top of the water has some rules to hide a bit the things that are
under. Okay.
under it. So yeah, we have this system. It's called our ground ripple caster.
Mm.
So this makes sure that, as you can see here, if I grab a seashell, it casts a shadow right here when I hold it. So it will detect the nearest ground and detect, is it a ground or is it water? If it's a ground, it will cast a shadow, and if it's water, it will cast a water ripple, and it will transform automatically to a water ripple effect.
The other one.
So as you can see here, here it's a shadow, and here it's a water ripple.
And it's another great example of why going for the 3D like has helped, right? Because you can just intersect the vertical thing into the 2D rather than drawing new frames of this is what this item looks like underwater and drawing that frame.
Exactly.
Actually, going 3D brought us some new possibilities, but it brought us also a lot of challenges to make sure we're able to blend 2D inside 3D. So we had to use some tricks such as these to make sure everything is looking good.
But I just want to say the chat is absolutely loving this. Pink Rami says, I love this. No, Camus is just amazing, guys. Love it. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for being so attentive and engaged. Everyone's loving it. So I think next we're going to be talking about scriptable objects. But before we jump into that, I think we'll take a short 5 to 10 minute break. Everyone. To get started, let's Daniel take it away for scriptable objects.
Yeah, so scriptable object is a neat feature that we used quite a lot throughout many systems in the game, and I just wanted to quickly show one of the use we've made of scriptable objects for a challenge that many developers will have in their development if you develop a game where you spawn a lot of items at once. So in Ship of Fools, we have many types of projectiles. So your character can shoot many things. Here, I can show you an example. I can open up my really secret dev menu. So here I can spawn myself every item in the game. I can spawn myself every type of item I want. So here's some magazine generators. I can place them right there. So I can shoot like regular seashells with my guy. I can shoot these crystal balls that apply some other properties on enemies. And then I can shoot these fiery seashell that will apply other types of effects. So the challenge we have with this is that we encountered along the way is that with a specific type of cannons or with specific combos, we can spawn many projectiles at the same time. If I spawn myself the grape shot, which is another cannon, and I place like these in it, I can load it and boom, I can spawn like 8 projectiles at once. So that creates a really small but noticeable lag spike in the engine. When we spawn all of these at the same time, the engine must pick up everything and create everything, and it creates a lag spike. And with a combination of items, it can go pretty crazy. If I get myself some some ammunition box, you'll see that now I have 8 projectile. Now I have 22, and I can spawn myself 22 projectile at the same time. And if I'm crazy enough, and I'm clicking like a madman, I can have up to let's say 400 projectiles. Okay, that's a bit too much, but as you can see, we can have many projectiles written
Wow.
at the same time. So as you saw, it's pretty smooth. There's no lag spike. It's going pretty well. It's because of a technique that's called projectile pooling. So here, as we can see, we have a pool of already created objects in the scene that are living. I think there's about 200 of them that are always living at the same time. And how it works is that every projectiles have a specific scriptable object attached to it, and that scriptable object will inform the pool to create, or in fact to transform the next projectile into this specific one. Let me show you an example. Here I have the scriptable object for the blazing shell. It's this projectile right here. Our scriptable object it's called the projectile properties, and in this we manually input every property of this specific projectile, like its damage, the sprite that it uses, the type of trail that will follow the projectile, every single properties, critical hit chance, speed, etc.
Yeah.
So the pool will use a system where we assign for each projectile type a projectile property scriptable object. So here, as we can see, there's a lot of projectile type in the game. So it's manually assigned each one to its according projectile properties. And when I create a projectile, when the cannon shoots, for example, it will ask the projectile pool to take one of the inactive projectile that is currently running, transform it in its assigned properties, and then shoot it. And doing it this way, we bypass the spawning cost of creating a game object at runtime.
Right.
So that makes the game run pretty smooth. And just for fun, I'm gonna shoot 300 projectiles just for you.
Just to prove it.
Just to prove, and I don't know if it's good. Oh, it's not that bad. So yeah.
Nice.
There will be a like spike because your pool only contains 200 projectiles, so there's new instantiation.
Oh, so like 100 are being spawned.
Yes,
spawned.
but it's
in the game,
mitigated.
But look pretty good though. Yeah.
In the game, it does not happen to have that many projectiles. I think the max you can have is like maybe 50 or 75, about that.
Okay.
But it must work. With the right combination of item, it can go pretty crazy.
I see. So that's very interesting. So you're essentially just changing the data, but the objects are there.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that. And I'm sure you use scriptable objects in many other ways throughout the game, or
yes, we use scriptable object for many things. I can pass the puck to my good friend Marc-Antoine to
absolutely.
He'll tell us about how we query some random item in the game, because in a roguelike there's a lot of random things, random generation that's going on, such as generating a random item from a chest, and we have a lot of algorithms that are going on this. So yeah, Mark.
Yeah, I can go ahead. Like Daniel said, we have like hundreds of items in Ship of Fools. We have mag generator, we have artifacts, we have trinkets, we have a lot of stuff, and different use case for these objects, these items. We can find them in chests. Some enemy can drop them. You need to populate some shops with them. So we find items in a lot of places inside Ship of Fools, and when we design the game, there's a lot of rules regarding which items can spawn somewhere. In some kind of basic chest, you won't have the same chances to find a rare item as if you were opening one of the more rare chests, the Nemesis chest that you gain, or the ancient chest that you gain on the Treasure Islands, let's say. And in Unity, basically every item that we design is built using prefabs. A prefabs is like a recipe that we'll at some point instantiate when we want a given item at a given place. And when the item is spawned in the environment, the concept of prefab is just something that lives in the editor. When we're running the real game, we don't have Unity doesn't have a mean to trace back what was the recipe used to create a particular item. So sometimes we have some use case like in the end of the second sector in Ship of Fools, where we have a recycling wells. It's like a pond when you can throw an item in it, and it will give you back another item of the same type.
Okay.
So to do that kind of functionality, you have to first gain information on what was the object that was thrown in the pond, and basically trace back what was its recipe, and for the pond that duplicates the item, and for the one that recycles it. Then we have to query amongst every item we have what other item we will give back to the player. And what we did to go around the fact that prefabs, there's no traceability built in with the editor, is that we've attached a unique identifier as a component on every prefab that we've created on every item. And we've created some kind of database that tracks and index every recipe by that given index. And we add like metadata and on scriptables object that reference these prefab. So basically we have like a database with metadata referencing every item in the game. And when I'm speaking of metadata, I'm speaking of what is the rarity of the item. Is it something that we find commonly, like a plank, or is it something more rare? The availability, is it something that we can find in chests? Is it something that only happens in it's only spawned in shops? So we can define a lot of characteristics that are commons to all the items in these scriptable objects. And then we can do like database-like queries to do like, I want to populate this shop, and this shop is in the second sector. So the distribution of what item I'll find in this shop will be of these rarities. And so give me back like 3 random items, 3 random different items. And there's also the concept of, if you already got an item in your run, you don't want to find that item again. So that pool is tracking if you already spawned that item, if you already find an item in the chest. Also tracking if you had an item and you dropped in the water for like there's an island in the third sector of the game where Oracle Junior it's a little character that will like spawns back every item that you drop during your run, and you can like you can reuse something that you trashed along the way.
Right.
So all this information, all that is like useful for getting a random item and enforcing rules like a unicity of item and the rarity and the growing sector by sector. All this stuff is we implement it using like metadata in scriptable objects like a pool of scriptable object with these information.
I see.
Referencing a recipe for items.
Okay, got it. So the data is being collected as you're progressing, as you're throwing things into the recycling pits. And
Exactly.
As you go. Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so it seems like your use of scriptable objects and the use of scriptable objects in general is great for things that are happening, things that need to be saved and changed on runtime, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, great. So, and Marc-Antoine, you have a whole section of stuff, a whole bunch of stuff that you're going to present to us now that's not scriptable objects, which is the netcode, which is how the game, how you're able to play with your friends online.
Big topic.
Big topic. So we'll jump into that. Etienne, I believe you'll be sharing your screen to show the diagrams. So we'll cut to Etienne's screen to showing off the networking architecture diagrams and Mark, take it away.
Yeah. So Ship of Fools, originally a local co-op game that we transformed into a multiplayer co-op game using one of the latest Unity's project, netcode for game object. So what we have a peer-to-peer game. Why a peer-to-peer game, and what's a peer-to-peer game? It's a game where two players, two owner of a Ship of Fools copy, connects their game together with no server in between, no dedicated server in between to enforce rules or synchronize stuff. So basically, you're just connecting your game to your friends, and one of you two is going to be the host of the game, the one where you'll be using its save, its progression, and the other will just join the state of the host game. Why did we choose to do a peer-to-peer game? First of all, a peer-to-peer game, like I said, there's no dedicated server, so there's no infrastructure cost. We don't have to invest in hosting servers and scaling servers as we have more and more users. The game will always be available to be played in multiplayer online, since we don't have to maintain servers. And what's really cool is that every platforms like Steam, the PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo Switch, they all offer connection channel to do those kind of networking stuff, so for free. So our game leverages, and we add our game has the perfect use cases for being a peer-to-peer game, because there's a lot of stuff that you can't do when you're doing peer-to-peer games that wasn't applicable to Ship of Fools. Let's say if you were doing competitive game, not a co-op game, something that you might want to do is anti-cheating system. Right. So when you're doing a co-op game, the only person you're cheating, if you're cheating, is yourself. There's no incentive to to cheat to gain advantage over the other player. And if you were to do an anti-cheat system, you kind of have to have a mediator application in between the two games to enforce and detect if there's some cheating happening on one of the client side. And that's why most of the games that are competitive and online needs a dedicated server to enforce those rules. And other concern that might need a dedicated server are if you want to do crossplay. If you want to do crossplay, some PC gamer want to play with a Switch player, as you can figure out, Nintendo will not open a communication channel to a PC or to a PlayStation. They are competitor. Right. So it's your job as a developer to have a middleman, a server that your Switch will communicate to, and your PC will communicate to, and will as a middleman to do the translation in the network packets that are sent between the two players. And yeah, and another aspect that when you have you might need a dedicated server is when you're doing matchmaking, but without just your friends. If you want to do game discoverability, looking for available player in your region to play a game of Ship of Fools.
Yeah.
When you're doing a peer-to-peer game, it's not something that is that's something that you can do unless you have a dedicated matchmaking server, because you need to be aware of every other player that are connected in your region, and being connected to a middleman is something that will allow you that. But in our case, being a two-player co-op game, most of the time we want to play with a friend, someone we know already, so we can leverage every console and environment invite system, like Steam invites or Nintendo Switch game invite, to join a friend and gain its information to establish a connection between the two games. So that was the premise of why we chose to go down the road of making a peer-to-peer online game with Ship of Fools. And just for the sake of explaining the big aspect of what is netcode first, I talk about netcode for a game object, and what is the realm of netcode, and what is a transport, and what is matchmaking. Netcode is everything that takes your game state, what's happening in the game, and translate it into something that can be sent over the network and can be reiterated and can be read by the other player's game to synchronize what's happening. Let's say my boat has 3 life point left, 3 HP left. I want, if I'm the host, I want that my friends playing with me to see in its game that the life of the boat is 3 HP. Same for our collective money or shards that we collect along the way. We want to synchronize different position, like where an enemy is located, where when sounds happen, stuff like that. So everything that's happened in the game has to be designed in a way that is translatable to network packets and can be sent over the network and used to synchronize what's happening in the game. And that's what we call netcode, and that's what netcode for game objects do. It gives us a framework, an easy ways to digest what are the state of the game, what are the events in the game, and translate them to packets.
And is this a framework that you had used in the past at all, or was this your first time using this?
It was our first game, so it was our first time.
Yeah.
And it was a first for many people, I think, because netcode for game objects was a pre-alpha package, pre-alpha tool when we started developing with it. It's not something that was already released and battle tested by many games. It existed before as an open source project called MLAPI, and then Unity's engineers picked it up and tried to spin it and continue to maintain it and make it the official Unity ways to do netcode inside the Unity engine.
Yeah.
And we choose to go along with that framework, even if it was only at the pre-alpha stage, because the roadmap was announcing the stable 1.0 release at some point before our game release. So we were expecting that the framework was going to be stable enough to be used in production. By the end, we were we will be done with the development of Ship of Fools.
Okay.
And yeah, so doing the development of an online game for the first time with the tool that is not battle tested, with incomplete documentation and contract that are ever changing, was quite a challenge, because you got to get really involved with the evolution of the framework and every aspect of its code base, because it's changing, and it made us like get an understanding of that framework really in depth. We have read almost the entirety of the code base to be able to get every use case we wanted to cover, which Ship of Fools covered.
And I think it goes both ways, because everybody internally is so interested in your game, because of course it's one of the pioneering games to use netcode for game objects to this extent, and so we have a lot of people on the multiplayer team watching right now in the chat. So
yeah. great. Yeah. But it was a good experience. We had, of course, to twist the framework to our needs, because it was pretty early for the framework. So there's a lot of features that were planned on their roadmap but not already implemented that we needed to cover. And I'll touch these aspects a little later, working with the addressables, when we have asset bundles in our game, how do you integrate that with and when you have a dependency injection framework, how do you couple that with a framework like Netcode, who does a lot of things for you, like the instantiation of your networked object. And when you have a dependency injection framework, the dependency injection framework want to do the instantiation because you want to inject dependencies into your object. So Netcode want to do the instantiation too, because it wants to create a networked identity over the network for the object. And the addressable want to do the instantiation too. Well. Yeah, they want to do it asynchronously, so it can spawn them only when the asset bundles is pulled into memory. So there's a lot of big framework that overlaps in key aspect of the lifespan of a game object, and that was a challenge as well to integrate, because Netcode hasn't been tested at that point for these use cases.
Okay, and were there any other slides you wanted us to look at that pertain to this?
Yeah, but we can just go a little bit more in depth if we're looking at the slide we have right there, and the Netcode for game object box. So in our peer-to-peer games, something that is interesting is who has the truth when we in regards to every aspect of our games, because in a game that has a dedicated server, the truth lies within that server. So every player that plays our game interacts with the server and doesn't own the truth. But in the case of a peer-to-peer game, one of the player has the truth, the host, and the other doesn't. But we want to have the same experience for both players. So the players that is not the host, we don't want its players to be not snappy, because if he input I want to go left with his joystick, we don't want to bounce that request to the host and get the host to validate that you can go left. So go to the network round trip before actually seeing some feedback that something happened. So there's some truths in a peer-to-peer game that has to be shared with clients, not just the host that has every aspect of the game truth. So one thing that we have, it's like I just said, the fools, the character that you're playing, are client authoritative. That means every player owns its truth, its player's truth. So if I'm a client, I'm not the host, and I'm moving my fools left, I'll see it move left instantaneously, and then that information will be relayed to the host, and the host will replicate what the the client has done without asking any question, because the truth lies within the the character owners, the clients. But for all the other major aspect of the game, we have to like ensure that the experience is coherent between every player. So where NPCs are, where monsters are, their position, where items are, that's all things that has to be that has to be managed by the host. So the truths lie within the host. So the line where the place where it gets interesting is what happens when your client, your known host player interacts with something that he doesn't manage the truth. Like if I'm an non-host player and I want to pick up an item that is on the floor, that item I receive its world position from the host. So the host will say that item is at X and Y coordinate on the floor. So if I'm I'm saying on my local client, I just picked it up, I don't want to like have the validation from the host that now it's at this position. So you want to feel it snappy. So there's the border of everything that the client can interact with, that we want to do like reconciliation strategies. Okay. And that's what I'm illustrating in the little diagram here with the monster, the projectile, and the items. And yeah, Etienne, if you can go to the little GIF, I'll show more specifically the case of an item. How do we handle picking up an item in Ship of Fools? So what you can see here is the full of the client, the non-host player, but in the screen of the client itself, and on the left, and on the screen, seen from the screen of the host player on the right. What you can see while the item it's in the fool's end, the animation are not synced. Like you see the mouth of the little character opening up, not at the same time. You see the item being picked up in its hand and going up and down, like Etienne said. It's following the bones of the fool's rig, so it feels like it's in its end. And since the animation is not synced, the item is not exactly at the same place at the same time. And what we have is regarding the truth of the item, it's when the item is on water or on the boat, it's the position that the host prescribed that is replicated on the client. When the client picks up an item, what we do is that we cut the communication channel between the host item well position and the client, and instead we're working with parent constraint. So we're constraining the position of the item to the bone of the fool, and what we're saying is basically every client has to put that item in the ends of the fool, regardless of where the fool is. Okay. So it happens instantaneously and it's snappy. And then comes a more challenging issue of the physics, because there's physics in games. So when the item is going to be ejected, it's going to be thrown by the fools on the ground. Yeah, that as well should happen instantaneously. We want that to feel snappy for the client. So we don't want to do like, throw it, and ask the host to do it for us and like just sync the wall position while the item is in the air. Because if we do that, we'll experience an initial lag on the client side, because it needs validation first, and then after the round trip of the network information, you get to see the update of the position. So what we're doing in these use cases, we're actually doing the local physics simulation locally, like I said. Yeah. So the client will disable the communication challenge. Will do the local physics simulation of the drop locally, and will send all the information on the host on how to reproduce the same physics simulation. And that's very important because, like I said, the animation of the fool is not synced. Like position of where it is at some point in the arms of the fool, is it higher, is it lower? So when it's thrown, it's not thrown from the same height.
Yes.
It has to be synced if we want to have give us the more chances of doing the same exact physics simulation, because physics simulation is not deterministic. You do one physics simulation on one game, and you do with the same parameter on another game. Some small difference might occur between the two simulations because of the error in the small number when you're interpolating frame by frame at a low time difference between the frames. So we want to give us all the chance, put all the chance on our side to have the closest possible physics simulation on both sides to have the more coherent experience. So that's what we do. We're like replicating this physics simulation on both sides, letting the client do it directly on its side, so it's snappy. And as soon as the item touch the ground, if there's any correction that needs to happen, as soon as it touches the ground, we reopen the network connection. So it's the host truth. So if the host says, oh, it's not really at that position, it's a little bit on the right, the client will correct the position by interpolating. So you might see a little slide of the item when
I noticed it on the right side, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it corrects its position at that point.
Yeah.
And
but I only noticed it after looking at it for like 20 times in a row.
Yeah.
So it's great.
And for every cases of where you have like that boundaries between the client authoritative truth and the server authoritative truth, how you're gonna reconciliate really depends on your use case. Because like throwing an item, it's something that like what I've described works well for throwing an item, because it's like an impulsion at the beginning when you throw something. So there's a lot of speed involved in the very first frame of the animation of the throw. So it's less perceptible to the human eye if I'm like teleporting the item to reproduce the exact physics simulation at the beginning of the throw. So if the item was like higher on the client and the server was lower, if I'm on the server, I'm like teleporting it here and then doing the simulation. So it's happening at high speed. Since it's an impulse, we won't see it. It won't be perceptible, and the illusion might fool the player.
Well, what I think is very interesting about this demonstration is it shows how much artistry is involved in this as well, like in getting it to look right and making the networking work gameplay-wise and aesthetically. And it shows that each game will have its own cases that you're going to have to address.
I would say Ship of Fools is not a physically intensive game, and that's one of the reason why we use peer-to-peer and Netcode for Game Object, because Netcode for Game Object is still very early in its roadmap with regards of how it handles physics. It's basically the only mechanism that is currently implemented in Netcode for Game Object is the client replicates what the host have or the server have. So every item are set, every rigid body are set to kinematic on the client side, and they are just reproducing with interpolation and extrapolation what the host is simulating in its physics engine.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's fantastic. So thank you for that breakdown. Very, very in depth, and I think very useful for people who want to start using Netcode for Game Object to see such a practical example. And in use, you can play this game today. You can play it online with a friend. And speaking of that, let's drop another link in the chat to Ship of Fools. Go check out the game. It's out. Go buy it. It's fantastic. And then I think we have one more thing to look at, right? Which is I already talked a little bit about the concern of
handling the spawning when we're speaking of big framework like addressables, like dependency injection and netcode for game object. So I don't think I will talk really more about that. I'll just talk of another concern that we had that made us use addressable in our project, which was the scene loading time. At some point, our project was getting really sluggish. So when we were like going from the menu to the game scene, and we didn't have any like asset bundle and stuff like that to manage what goes in memory in the game memory at what time. Our game was loading a lot of stuff when entering the game scene. So our loading time at that point could take like 30 seconds to 2 minutes, which is not really acceptable for a modern game nowadays, especially for 2D games. So what we saw with when we were like networking our game is that that problem is like amplified a lot when we're in a network in an online game context, because if you can zoom a little bit in the diagram. Basically, when you transition between scene in an online context while using netcode for game object, what happens is that the host has to load the scene that you're going to go to completely before even asking the clients to start loading the scene. So if you have a long loading time between scene when you're in a local multiplayer game, a local game, solo or multiplayer, when you're doing an online game, an online loading, a scene loading, you'll get twice the amount of time for that loading. So it really made our life, made our game more painful because there were so many waiting time. So one thing that we introduced in the game was the addressable. So we started like chopping down what's need to be used at a given time in the game, like asset for the second sector doesn't need to be in memory when you are at the lighthouse or when you are in the first sector. So we like more granularly organize what needs to be loaded in the memory at any time. So when we were going into the game scene, not every asset of our game was in memory. So that reduced a lot our loading time. But like I said earlier, netcode for game object is early and didn't add any ways to interface with addressable scene loading, because that you need to load your scene through the using the addressable system if you want to leverage what I've just described. Mm-hmm. So we had to like fork the netcode project to allow the scene loading aspect of it to use the addressable loading framework, scene loading framework. So what you can see with the diagram that is showing at the screen is what we achieve in the end. Something that we first with addressable or scene loading was that it looks like half of what we had before, but it's more like a tenth of what it was before. Just I wanted to be able to put in some text in the box. But what we discovered is that the only thing that matters for netcode for game object is that the host scene activation, which is the last part of a scene loading, happens before the client's activation. So instead of like just doing the whole scene loading and activation, then asking the clients to do this whole scene loading and activation, what we could do is like asking every client, the host as well, to start loading the scene, but do not activate your scene yet. The host will activate its scene, and then when it's done, activate the client scene. So we're able to like reduce our scene loading time by like a fifth of what it was when being in solo. So that's one of the cases where it was difficult and more challenging to integrate with the rest of our game. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I think that sums everything I had to say about netcode. Is there any question in the chat?
Let's see. Yeah, chat. If you have any questions about netcode for game objects, we do have some. So yeah. So Jackrabbit83 asks, for addressable setup, did it force you to do a big reshuffle of project folder hierarchy, or did you manage it via scriptable objects or other techniques? That's a pretty good question.
We manage it by scriptable object. Yeah.
Nice.
Our I speak earlier of assets that are used in a given sector and not another sector of the game. Every sector has a scriptable object referencing what enemies are going to be in, what props are going to be in, everything that is going to be loaded for that sector, basically. So we were using scriptable object as a descriptor for this. And what's wonderful with the addressable system is that if you just put that scriptable object in a bundle without explicitly describing in that bundle what are the everything that is used in the sector, the dependency are going to be implicitly inferred and put in that given bundle. So we leverage scriptable objects to not go over the thousands of assets we had and do exhaustive sorting of them. So because that would be a crazy amount of time.
yes, you don't do that. So and then Tiny Synapse says, please release the addressable game object fork solution.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, and then sorry, you were gonna say something? You're gonna do it?
Yeah, we could. The fork is publicly available on our GitHub.
Oh, nice.
If someone wants to look at how we do it, so
amazing. We had another question. I've actually lost it here. I found it. There it is. Kulo Extremo asks, do you regularly use UML or other kind of modeling languages to aid your game development workflow?
I would say that these days I try to do it more because we take more time to do documenting as we are starting new production in the studio and onboarding more people. But during the production of Ship of Fools, we didn't do very much because we were at our first game and we had we're really busy with the production. I'll just say that we didn't take the time very much to structure our process and that everything regarding documentation is happening as a post-mortem of our project. So we're using it more.
It was mostly on the whiteboard that we did sometime UML just because we need to grasp or to make our mind on some things, but really formal documentation.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I've used UML a lot myself when I was designing some of the systems, but it's all on my iPad or on my. It's all on paper. There's no official documentation, but I think the purpose of UML is to help understand the structure of how objects are integrated together, and we use that a lot.
Yeah, challenging the design before going into deep into implementation and sinking a lot of time into something that might not do or might not be accepted by the team because there's some oversight we made or something like that. So, yeah, it's a quick design tool.
Nice. But there are a lot of questions, so I'm going to keep running through some of them. Chat is very engaged. Thanks, chat. So a first-time chatter, More Pixels, actually asks, does the shipped version of the game have any custom changes to addressable packages?
No, we're not using the content update pipeline of addressable. It's not something that thought that was necessary for our first game. We only use addressable as a memory management tool. Because every platform where we're deploying our game as patching system for the game. So, and we don't deliver any content using CDNs or stuff like that. So, not for Ship of Fools, but it's definitely something that might be used by our team in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And then this is a question. Actually, sorry. This one. Oh yeah, this is a question for me actually. So Shiny Games asks, how often do you stream such cool showcases? How do you select the games to showcase? We stream on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern time. And we have relationships with developers and publishers, and we reach out to them, and sometimes they reach out to us. We try to line up these showcases with important releases to them, things that are important to them, maybe launches of games, or just when we feel like showcasing a cool game. So it's you can email us, and you may have a chance to be featured on the stream as well. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. And then there's another question, which is, hold on. Oh, here. No Pet Rides asks, I ran into the issue where you can't parent server-owned items to client-owned characters. Can you more deeply explain the process of turning off object sync, parenting it to the bone, and resyncing?
An intuitive way to secure stuff on moving objects is to use parenting in game objects. So if my boat moves, my mag generator, I want it to move with the boat, so I'll put it as a child of this. But netcode for game object does not support, or did not support at that time when we were using it, embed network object. So if the boat is a network object and they have networks state that are synced, and if the mag generator has states as well that is synced, you cannot have them being parent in a parent-child hierarchy. So the stuff that we've been using to go around that, and generally speaking, you don't want big hierarchy chain of parent-child object because it prevents the engine multi-threading from happening. So using the program object really flattened out our game object hierarchy, and we're using parent constraint to do the same behavior that we would have if we were doing real object parenting, which is synchronizing the transform and the rotation and this and this kind of stuff when the parent's transform is changing.
Okay.
So yeah.
Great. Chat says that you were cut off because you're giving away too many trade secrets. So your team cut you off. You just disconnected. No, that's great. So yeah, that was most of the questions. So I think we can jump to the
build pipeline.
Build pipelines. Yeah, the final part of the stream. So let's.
Yeah. So that's a more DevOps oriented topic. Build pipeline is for people that are not aware of what it is. It's automated generation of build and deployment on platforms like Steam Branch for when we're in the development process, or our console SDK. So in order that we get build the more often possible in the hands of our QAs. So we're not just we do a build on every Friday and we code freeze and there's no more code entering our master branch, and we do a manual build where the person who is doing the build could do some errors and not do the build correctly, and doing a build on its machine, on its computer, will prevent him from using his computer for some time. So really, build pipeline is a really useful tool. Basically, we're dedicating machines to automate and remove the human error in the process. So in our case, every time new code was entering our master branch in our version control system, build will automatically be made for every platform that we wanted, and then not a normal build, but a development build with every tool for us and for QAs to report bug and analyze bug, and then will automatically be deployed on a special private development branch on Steam called our Nighty branch. So we gain faster iteration and build more frequently in the
Nice.
hands of our tester. So that's a concept that exists in standard software development and in the TI industry. And it's something that if you're using version control, there's framework for what the concept it's called CI/CD for continuous integration, continuous deployment. Continuous integration is it's when you integrate something in the master, you want to make sure that it's well integrated so you can run. Does it build correctly? You can run test suite with like Unity has a test framework, so you can run test suite to ensure that no previously made feature was broken by newly made stuff. So that's the continuous integration part, and then there's the continuous deployment part where every time something enters your master branch, it's deployed on whatever platform you want to ship your product on. So every version control system, major version control system like GitHub or GitLab has their own CI/CD pipeline framework. GitHub is called GitHub Action. For GitLab, it's called GitLab CI. And there's as well some other CI/CD pipeline that are made by third party that are usable as well. And in our case, our version control system is GitLab. We're using GitLab with GitLab CIs for running such automated pipeline. And basically what it does, it's a scheduler that will, at any time that we will be pushing some code on a branch, we'll undergo to a code review process inside our team, and we'll approve the change made. Then when we'll be integrating that change to the master, that pipeline, that software will automatically publish a job for a runner. A runner is a machine that we have in-house in our office for that will pick up the job and will spin off a Unity environment where the CI/CD pipeline use a Docker's container. Docker's containers are like in the simplest way I can explain it, it's just like portable environment.
Yeah.
So you can easily reproduce an environment where you have a Unity editor ready with the Windows build plugin on it, ready to take your code, create a Windows build, and put the executable file. So basically, our runner. First of all, what we're seeing in the screen is the GitLab CI/CD's pipeline dashboard. So what we see here is it's when some code has entered the master branch, it has built a Mac OS X version of our game. Then another job was made to build a Windows build of our game, dev build of our game. So with the development symbols, debugging symbols, and dev tools for our QAs to easily go into every place of that our game has. So you don't have to start the game from the beginning every time they test something. If they want to fight the last boss, they can jump to the last boss right away. So we're building every time we're entering the master these development builds. We're shipping it on a private Steam branch, and that's it. And on the right, what you can see is there are manual pipelines, which are like job that we can trigger manually that will not happen systematically every time we integrate code into the master branch to do other kind of build. Like let's say we want to bring our game into an event like the Gamescom, where there won't be internet access, so our game will not work online, and we want a demo version to just showcase the first sector of our game. We don't want to show the whole game. So this pipeline will create a build and will set some symbols, I think it's debug symbols in Unity. It's called. So it's defines symbols that will trigger and show and hide some part of our codes. It's like feature flags that will transform our game into a demo version of our game. So we have those kind of pipelines to when we're doing staging version that will be release candidate for a new update in the game, or when we have a milestone with our publisher and stuff like that. So we have a lot of like more ad hoc pipeline that we can trigger manually in this environment.
Okay.
And yeah, Etienne, if you can just showcase the little graph.
Yes.
Basically, it's something that will just sum up everything I said. I don't know if you can zoom a little. Yeah, good. So basically, GitLab or GitHub as its executor. It's the software that will publish jobs. You register your own server as runner to that executor. So every time like there's job published by the executor, like, hey, I need a Windows build. So, some kind of some server you have will pick up the job. It's all configurable, and then we'll Dockerize an environment to either do a build. If that's the case, we're using Unity Dockerized Unity instance coming from the Game CI Docker Hub repository. It's an open source project that has automated the Dockerization of every new version of the Unity editor. So as soon as Unity publish like a new version on the text stream, like let's say the version 2022.7.8 that was released yesterday. 15 minutes after that, there's a bot that will download that version, bundle it into a Docker container, and publish it on that repository that we can use for automated build pipeline purposes. So yeah, for build pipeline, we hydrate a Unity editor and just do the build as we would normally do in our own editor. And for the deploy step, basically between every job, we save the build result on our servers, and we reuse them in the next job down the pipeline. And we're using like an official Steam Steam case, an official Steam Docker image to like publish the using the Steam pipe technology to publish the build on our Steam on our studio Steam account, basically.
And we have a question from Salem Tech 123 saying, do you need to use something like Octopus Deploy, or no need for that in your CI/CD use case for your game?
I'm not aware of what is Octopus Deploy, but we don't use it. For deployment in the case of Steam, we're using the official Steamworks SDK. The Steam CMD I was just talking about is a Dockerized, so a portable environment that contains the command line interface for the Steamworks SDK. So it's only we're using that environment to use Steamworks SDK's method to publish an archive onto our Steam account.
Okay, great. So I think does that cover everything on the build pipelines?
Yeah, basically. If there's any question.
Yeah, if anybody has any more questions, please throw them in the chat now. Most of it's been covered. So yeah. Oh, what open source project did they use? Says Blood Beret.
For the build part, is it the question?
I think so. I think this is the latest question. So simply, yeah.
The open source project is called Game CI. Mm-hmm. It offers more than just the Dockerized Unity environment. It offers like scripts that you're gonna use in Unity, because when you're building your game from the command line, you don't have an editor that is with a graphical interface up and a button that will click on the when build setting and build now. That's not how it happens. It runs Unity from the command line, basically, with command line argument that will run a script, a C# script, that will then use Unity's editor method to start the build process programmatically, the addressable build process too programmatically, that will set up the symbols I was talking earlier about for a demo version, for any modification, any feature you want to turn on or turn off in your game for a specific build use case you want, a demo build or a build without online or something like that. Yeah, so
great. And so just to wrap things up, I wanted to ask each of you, you know, it's a long journey to make a game. It's your first game. You learned so much in the process, of course, as you were telling me. If you have any final takeaways, final advice for people watching who want to make their own game, each of you, what would that be? So I'll start with Antoine.
I have like there's so many advice that we could have give. One of them, I think, it's creating a game is an iteration process. So it even for game design, animation, development, programming, everything in the game is iterative. So I think you've mentioned in Hassan that don't be afraid to like make mistakes. You will learn from them, and you will not get like perfect from the beginning, and it's okay. It's part of the learning process, and I think you will always get better at creating games the first each time you do it. Yeah.
Exactly. That's great advice. Thanks, Antoine. And Daniel.
Yeah, an advice for baby game developers, as I was before. I really encourage people to try out some game jams.
Yeah.
It's a really cool activity to do. I was doing a lot of game jams back in the days to just practice and try out my game design brain and game dev tactics. Making a game, it could be as simple as having cubes, shooting cubes, and if it's fun, it's fun, you know. So you could do that in a game jam just for fun. It's a really good learning process. I did my last game jam. It was with my good friend Philip, who's our composer in Ship of Fools. So we've made a game. It was just the two of us. He made the music, and I did the cubes. I also did the drawings and animation of that game.
Oh, nice.
And it was really fun. So I encourage everyone to try out a game jams.
I would second that. That's great advice. And you know, so many of the people we've interviewed on these creator spotlights, their games were game jams before they turned into full production games. Actually, the game we had last week, Townseek, was a global game jam entry that turned into a full game. So definitely, it's great advice. Thanks, Daniel. So Mark, Antoine.
Yeah, I would say to everyone that wants to try to do an online game, start early. If you know that you want to do netcode and start a game, do a network game. Networking a game, like doing the netcode, every system in your game needs to be adapted to in order to do synchronization between clients. So if you start late in the development process, you'll have to revisit everything that has been made before, as well as keep adapting what is made by the rest of your team at that time in the production. So it's really easier to do it as to do the netcode as you go, instead of just trying to to be faster than the rest of your team and rattraper in French.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So it's basically, make sure you're starting early with that stuff. Don't build the whole game and then add online later.
Yeah, basically it's an
Yeah,
ever-growing
redoing.
task. Yeah.
Right. You're gonna be redoing a lot of stuff otherwise, I'm guessing. Great.
that too.
Thanks. Etienne?
Yes, I will cheat. I have two tips.
No, not allowed. I'm just gonna.
The first one is something that I had to learn, but I think everybody could find this useful. Is stop trying to reinvent the wheel. I think everybody right now is trying to find the perfect gimmick to sell their game, but I think the first thing you have to do is build the wheel and then make the wheel fun. So make your game fun before making your game different from every other games. And that's like, you can go specific with this. Stop trying to, in my case, like do the new VFX that's gonna blow everyone's mind. Just do a cool VFX and then continue with this. And sometimes I think, I'm pretty sure even all the time it's gonna be helpful and it's gonna clear your mind to just create fun stuff.
Right.
And the other one is quick. It's just we are lucky here in Quebec City and in Montreal for having a great ecosystem where we can learn and speak with everybody and learn from each other. And just when you're trying to make games and stuff, just speak with other creators and ask for help. You're not gonna lose anything. So I'm sending out the invitation. Just poke me on Twitter or anything
so
if you have any type of questions. Let's just create fun stuff, you know.
That's wonderful. That's so sweet of you. Yes, and that's also why we do these streams, is so that we can get that knowledge out there and share that information with people. So thank you, all of you, for coming on and sharing all your information, being so generous with all the knowledge you've learned over the past 3 years or more. I'm sure everyone in the chat clearly appreciates it. Thank you, chat, for all your amazing questions. Make sure to follow us if you're not already following us here on Twitch. Make sure to go buy Ship of Fools now. It's on Steam. We'll drop a link to the chat again. And next week on Wednesday, we're going to be interviewing a very little unknown game. You probably haven't heard of it, Among Us VR. So they'll be joining us next week. So that's going to be great. Really looking forward to that as well. And we'll continue doing weekly creator spotlights this month, except for the week of GDC. We'll be busy doing GDC things, but definitely make sure to follow us here on Twitch to get notified. So again, thanks everyone, and hope to see you around. Well, I'll probably see you at GDC actually.
Yeah, we will.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Ciao.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.